What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Sunday, August 10th, 2025, and I have some breaking news to share with you guys. Right now it is 13:36 Eastern Time here in the United States, and we have some major breaking news coming in from the U.S. So, U.S. President Donald Trump has announced that he will be meeting with the Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska this coming Friday, August the 15th, for peace talks related to Ukraine. And what you're looking at on your screen is Trump's post on his Truth Social account. He said, "The highly anticipated meeting between myself as the President of the United States of America and President Vladimir Putin of Russia will take place next Friday, August 15th, 2025 in the great state of Alaska. Further details to follow. Thank you for your attention to this matter." Wow, so we have Vladimir Putin, international war criminal responsible for the death of thousands of people, arriving on U.S. soil this coming week on Friday. That is absolutely insane. And NBC News is reporting that the White House is discussing the possibility of inviting Zelensky to Alaska, but sources told NBC that no final decision has been made. One source said the U.S. president is open to a trilateral summit with both leaders, but for now the White House is focused on arranging a meeting just with Putin alone. Wow, so this is huge news. Looks like Trump just wants to speak to Putin without Zelensky, but they are potentially going to involve Zelensky. We'll have to wait and see. And according to the Wall Street Journal, the Trump administration and Putin will discuss a proposed peace plan by Russia, which will involve two stages. The first stage is that Ukrainian forces would have to withdraw from the Donetsk Oblast while the rest of the front lines stay frozen. And in the second stage, Trump and Putin will agree on a finalized peace deal. Okay, so it wouldn't just be a ceasefire, it would be an actual peace deal, which would require Ukraine to essentially give up their land to Russia, okay, which is just totally insane. And Trump's representative to Russia, Steve Witkoff, reportedly misunderstood Vladimir Putin last week when he visited Moscow, believing that Russia planned to withdraw from Zaporizhia and Kherson regions in exchange for Ukraine withdrawing from Donetsk and Luhansk. In fact, Putin was referring to the withdrawal of Ukrainian forces from those areas. Okay, so Witkoff thought that Russia said, okay, we'll give you back Zaporizhia and Kherson, but you have to move all your troops out of the Donbass region. And that is actually not what Putin said. And Ukrainian President Zelensky rejected any scenario in which Ukraine is excluded from peace talks, warning that such a move would lead to dead decisions. He dismissed the idea of formally ceding territory to end the war, stressing that Kyiv must be directly involved in any negotiations. In a video address, he stated that Ukraine's territorial integrity is enshrined in the Constitution and is non-negotiable. He also emphasized that a lasting peace agreement requires Ukraine to be at the negotiating table. So Ukraine is not going to accept any peace deal that involves them gifting land to Russia, essentially. So it's not going to happen. I'm sorry. I know a lot of you guys absolutely love Putin, and you get a huge hard-on anytime Ukraine loses land, or if there's any indication that Ukraine is about to lose all this territory. It's not going to happen. Ukraine is not going to give up land, especially after they lost so many people trying to defend it. So yeah, that's not going to happen, okay? So the war will continue on in some form, but I can guarantee you that Ukraine will not be giving up territory. And the European powers, including Britain, Germany, and France, together with Ukraine, rejected Putin's ceasefire proposal and offered a counter strategy that emphasizes Ukrainian sovereignty and European security. Their response insists on a ceasefire first, followed by mutual territorial concessions alongside security guarantees such as potential NATO membership for Ukraine. They also emphasized the need for Ukrainian input on any peace deal. And a press release from the British Ministry of Foreign Affairs confirms that the British Prime Minister and the Ukrainian President held a phone call yesterday. It also confirmed reports that a meeting between representatives from the U.S., Ukraine, Britain, and the EU was held yesterday, and the U.S. Vice President and the British Foreign Minister were in attendance. Okay, so big meetings yesterday. This is going to be a potentially serious negotiation that's about to take place, but it doesn't look like Putin is willing to budge at all, and he's continuing with his maximalist demands of, Ukraine giving up all 4 regions that, Russia essentially conquered already, and it's just not going to happen. Ukraine is not going to give up that territory. Okay, I don't care if Trump withdraws support and doesn't give any weapons to Europe or Ukraine. Ukraine will fight with sticks and stones if they have to. They have proven that they will not give up even under the most extreme circumstances, so it's not going to happen. And at the upcoming meeting with Trump, Putin may propose retaining control over some of the occupied Ukrainian territories in exchange for withdrawing troops from other areas, the Wall Street Journal reported, citing a senior European diplomat and a Ukrainian official. And leaders from the EU and Britain released a joint statement welcoming U.S. President Trump's efforts to end the Russia-Ukraine war and reaffirm their support for Ukraine. They affirmed that the only effective approach is one of diplomacy and continued support to Ukraine, as this is the one that will secure Ukraine and Europe's security guarantees. And NATO naval forces are on high alert after a Russian submarine was spotted off the coast of Cyprus. And we're hearing of high activity at the Pankava test site in Novaya Zemlya Island in northern Siberia, suggesting that Russia may conduct a new test of its Burevestnik nuclear-powered cruise missile. A movable hangar has been installed on the launch site of the Pankava test site. 2 Ilyushin-96 skip planes were deployed at a nearby airfield, which are used for aerometric measurements. Furthermore, a NOTAM has been imposed over the nearby Barents Sea, indicating a possible missile launch. It lasts from August 7th to the 13th. On August 5th, a U.S. Air Force nuke sniffer used to monitor nuclear tests and conduct measurements conducted a patrol near the possible test site. A whole array of Russian aircraft is deployed for the occasion: transport aircraft, 1 AWACS, helicopters, fighter jets. Russian forces have installed anti-drone nets. So this is huge news. Russia will be testing their Burevestnik nuclear-powered cruise missile ahead of Trump's meeting with Putin. Okay, the Burevestnik is supposed to basically be a cruise missile that can travel around the world because it's nuclear-powered. And they've tried to test it before, and it led to the deaths of several scientists due to radiation. It crashed and exploded. So we'll see if it's actually successful this time around. But Russia has deployed their Ilyushin-97 or Ilyushin-96 skip planes, which are like their Cobra balls, essentially, like our Cobra balls. And then we deployed a nuke sniffer a couple of days ago to the area. And Russia has started installing anti-drone nets at their Rybachi nuclear-armed submarine base of the Pacific Fleet in Kamchatka, according to recent satellite imagery. So Rybachi is where Russia has about 40% of their nuclear-armed submarines, and it's on Kamchatka. And so they started installing anti-drone nets. They're afraid that Ukraine is going to launch drones that can travel like 5,000 miles and hit their nuclear-armed subs. That is just totally insane. And Trump has secretly authorized a Pentagon directive to use military force against specific Latin American drug cartels his administration has labeled as terror organizations. The Trump administration is deliberating military options against Mexican drug cartels, which have been designated as foreign terror organizations. Measures under review include drone and naval strikes. Though no ground troop deployment is being considered at this time, the planning phase is being driven by a working group comprising officials from the Department of Defense, Homeland Security, and intelligence agencies. In parallel, Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum firmly rejected the possibility of U.S. military operations on her country's soil. She reaffirmed Mexico's sovereignty and emphasized cooperation without any form of intervention by U.S. forces. So the Mexican president is against this idea, but it looks like the Trump administration is going to do drone and naval strikes on cartels. Guys, I told you this was going to happen months ago, okay, when we saw all the reconnaissance activity off of Baja California. I was one of the first to report that the Trump administration is considering military activity in Mexico to attack the drug cartels. And Iran has relocated its surviving nuclear scientists to safe houses in Tehran and northern Iran after Israeli airstrikes killed several of them during the June war. The Telegraph reported on Saturday, citing Iranian and Israeli sources. So Iran has moved their remaining nuclear scientists in bunkers for fear of further strikes by Israel and or the U.S. And the Israeli army this morning launched the surprise Dawn Rise exercise to test the readiness of the Israeli General Staff. That's the top generals of the Israeli military, senior leadership, and emergency forces for a sudden large-scale multi-front conflict. Okay, so preparing their top generals for a sudden large-scale multi-front conflict. And following a lengthy meeting, Israel's security cabinet approved Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's plan for the Israeli Defense Forces to take over Gaza City, his office said. And an Israeli official knowledgeable on the Israeli plan to occupy the entire Gaza Strip said that the operation will be slow and gradual with no official start date selected. It is likely that a new wave mobilizing thousands of troops in addition to evacuating thousands of Palestinian civilians. And according to Axios, U.S. President Donald Trump will not oppose Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's plan to launch a new military operation to fully conquer and occupy the entire Gaza Strip. This is absolutely huge news. And the UN Security Council confirmed that they will hold an emergency meeting on Sunday to discuss recent developments in the Middle East, particularly the recent Israeli decision to occupy the entire Gaza Strip. And Taiwan has again reported a surge in Chinese activity near their island. A combined 85 Chinese Air Force sorties were carried out in the past 2 days and crossed the median line of the Taiwan Strait. That's the most violations in any 48-hour period since October of 2024 during China's joint sword drills. So this is absolutely insane. China sending a whole bunch of fighter jets and aircraft towards Taiwan, the most since October of last year. And the presidents of Azerbaijan and Armenia, after meeting with Trump in Washington, D.C. on August 8th, issued a joint declaration marking key steps towards peace. They witnessed the initialing of a peace and interstate relations agreement and called for the closure of the OSCE Minsk process. Both sides committed to reopening communications, including transit routes between Azerbaijan and its Nakhchivan exclave via Armenia under the Trump Route for International Peace and Prosperity Project, or TRIP. The declaration reaffirmed respect for sovereignty, territorial integrity, and inviolability of borders, rejecting any future use of force or revenge. They expressed gratitude to Trump for hosting the summit and advancing bilateral normalization. So this is a huge loss for Vladimir Putin, because we know that Armenia was basically a satellite of Putin and Russia, and now Armenia has gone their own way. They kicked out Russian troops from Armenia 2-3 years ago, and now they've signed a peace deal with Azerbaijan, with Trump being the mediator. So this is huge news. And the Azerbaijani president and the Armenian prime minister expressed their support for Trump's nomination for the Nobel Peace Prize. And gunfire hit the CDC headquarters in Atlanta amid the active shooter incident at Emory University. Police now believe that the CDC building was the target of the Emory shooting. Now, guys, the CDC headquarters in Atlanta has some of the nastiest stuff. Okay, they have smallpox in that facility. They have all kinds of highly dangerous pathogens stored at that Atlanta facility. So that's very scary that there was an active shooter targeting that facility, because if he were to gain access to some of those areas, potentially these level 4 pathogens could have been released, including chimera viruses. And Trump fired IRS Commissioner Billy Long just 2 months after his confirmation. Treasury Secretary Bessent will serve as acting commissioner of the IRS in his place. And U.S. President Trump is considering reclassifying marijuana as a less dangerous drug following a million-a-plate fundraiser at his golf club in New Jersey earlier this month, which included Kim Rivers, the CEO of True Leaf Cannabis. Interesting. So it looks like Trump is going to be potentially reclassifying marijuana, which would be huge, because right now marijuana, even though it's legal in various states, either medically or recreationally, is still considered federally as a controlled substance and considered to be a hard drug under federal law. And engineers have designed a spacecraft that could take up to 2,400 people on a one-way trip to Alpha Centauri, the star system closest to our own. Chrysalis is designed to house several generations of people until it enters the star system, where it could shuttle them to the surface of the planet Proxima Centauri b, an Earth-sized exoplanet that is thought to be potentially habitable. Before boarding the ship, the Chrysalis project would require initial generations of ship inhabitants to live in and adapt to an isolated environment in Antarctica to ensure psychological well-being. The ship could theoretically be constructed in 20 to 25 years and retains gravity through constant rotation. The vessel would measure 36 miles in length and would be constructed like a Russian nesting doll, with several layers encompassing each other around a central core. The layers include communal spaces, farms, gardens, homes, warehouses, and other shared facilities, each powered by nuclear fusion reactors. The core in the center of the vehicle hosts the shuttles that could bring people to Proxima Centauri b, as well as all of Chrysalis's communications equipment. Wow. Okay, so they've already designed a spacecraft that can basically house enough people to make a serious landing on the nearest habitable planet to ours in the next solar system. Okay, this is very, very serious. And the Peruvian National Congress unanimously voted to preserve Peruvian sovereignty over the Santa Rosa Island yesterday. They also unanimously condemned Colombian president's claim to the island and other islands along the Amazonian border between the two countries. So it looks like some tension there between Peru and Colombia. But that's the latest breaking news that I have. I might be back tomorrow with more breaking news. And until the next time, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps: prepare, practice, and persevere. And this update was sponsored by EMP Shield. Guys, EMP Shield has created a special discount just for you, the listeners of the NYPrepper channel. If you go to empshield.com and use the promo code NYPrepper, you can get 15% off your entire order. And why do you need an EMP Shield? Well, this is a special device to protect your vehicle, your RV, your solar generators, your radios from an electromagnetic pulse, which could be caused by a solar flare or potentially a rogue country like North Korea detonating an electromagnetic pulse weapon over the United States that's mounted onto a satellite. So protect your vehicles, protect your RV, protect your radios, protect your generators with an EMP Shield. Use my promo code NYPrepper to get 15% off. Installation is super simple. This is a veteran-owned business, 100% American-made, and the EMP Shields have been tested by the military, okay? And free shipping is included to the entire continental United States. And the link and the promo code are in the description below this video.